Let me tell you about Mark, a devoted father who always put his children first. He coached his son's Little League team, cheered at every game, and celebrated every win and loss together. He taught his daughter to ride a bike, running alongside her until she could balance on her own. Mark never missed a parent-teacher conference or a school event, always making time for his kids. When his marriage ended, his priority was his kids' well-being and stability. Mark believed if he followed every rule, the court would be fair. He hired a lawyer, filed paperwork, attended every hearing, and documented his involvement. He took co-parenting classes and even sought advice from professionals. He welcomed custody evaluators into his home, showing them his commitment. Mark thought his love and dedication would speak for themselves. But in court, the focus shifted to the past. Who was the primary caregiver? Because his wife had stayed home, she was labeled the primary parent. Mark's long work hours, which supported the family, were used against him. The judge awarded his ex-wife primary custody. Mark got every other weekend and one dinner a week. He went from daily involvement to seeing his kids just a few days a month. He did everything right, and still lost. Mark's story isn't unique. This happens in courtrooms across the country, every single day. Why does the system fail fathers who do everything by the book? It's time to ask hard questions about fairness in family court. Mark's experience is a wake-up call for all of us. The law is supposed to be fair and gender-neutral, setting a foundation for equality in every family court case. Statutes in states like California and Texas explicitly prohibit courts from preferring one parent over the other based on gender. The best interests of the child is the guiding standard in all 50 states, shaping every custody decision. Judges are supposed to weigh factors like emotional bonds, stability, and even the child's own wishes. The law encourages frequent contact with both parents, recognizing that children benefit from strong relationships with both mom and dad. On paper, fathers like Mark should have an equal shot at custody and involvement. The law promises fairness, equality, and a focus on the child's well-being. But there's a big difference between what the law says and what actually happens in courtrooms across the country. The statutes are clear. Gender shouldn't matter. The goal is to keep both parents involved for the sake of the children. Yet the reality often doesn't match the promise, leaving many parents feeling powerless. The law's ideals are not always reflected in courtroom outcomes. Why is there such a gap between the law's intent and the reality families face? If the law is fair, why do so many fathers feel the system is stacked against them? The law promises equality, but the reality is often much more complicated. Judges interpret the law, bringing their own biases and experiences to every decision. The best interests standard gives judges broad discretion, making outcomes unpredictable. Two judges could look at the same case and reach different conclusions, even with identical facts. Gender-neutral laws can be undermined by traditional views about parenting roles, especially when it comes to custody. Judges may focus on who was the primary caregiver, often favoring mothers, even unintentionally. A father's financial support can be reframed as absence, rather than involvement. Decisions are made behind closed doors, with little transparency or explanation. Fathers leave court confused, knowing the law says one thing, but seeing another in practice. The unwritten rules can outweigh the written ones, leaving families searching for answers. Consider David and Sarah, a couple who tried to balance work and family. David worked long hours so Sarah could stay home, but he was deeply involved, handling mornings, bedtime, and weekends, always making time for his kids. When they divorced, David expected shared custody, believing his efforts would count. He adjusted his work schedule, moved nearby, and did everything to stay present in his children's lives. In court, Sarah was labeled the primary caregiver because she handled doctor visits and school contacts. David's emotional support and daily routines were minimized, his role reduced to the background. The court focused on administrative tasks, not the full picture of parenting. The judge awarded Sarah primary custody, citing stability and consistency. David got the standard every other weekend schedule, despite his commitment. The primary caregiver label became an almost insurmountable barrier, shaping the family's future. David's desire to be an equal parent was ignored, and the court cemented past roles into the future. This label can define a family's future, regardless of a father's commitment or love. For many, the primary caregiver label is a decision that echoes for years. In family court, history often outweighs hope for change. Courts tend to value what's already happened over what could be. Judges focus on who handled daily parenting during the marriage, not who's now eager to take on more. The status quo is seen as safest for kids, so courts often preserve past caregiving patterns. Fathers who worked outside the home to provide are sometimes penalized for fulfilling their expected role. Divorce changes everything, but courts rarely consider a father's new availability or willingness to parent. The past becomes an anchor, making it hard for fathers to build a new future with their children. This backward focus can rob kids of a more involved, loving parent in their lives. The numbers tell the real story, and they're hard to ignore. Despite gender-neutral laws, mothers are awarded primary custody in about 80% of cases, year after year. Even in contested trials, this pattern rarely changes. The primary caregiver standard and status quo bias often favor mothers, reinforcing old assumptions. Fathers face an uphill battle, often told not to fight for equal custody. Many settle for less time, not because they're less capable, but because the odds are stacked against them. The statistics reveal a systemic bias that persists. For fathers, the challenge is real, ongoing, and deeply felt. This isn't just about legal theory, it's about families, real people facing real heartbreak. Fathers who lose daily contact with their kids experience deep grief, isolation, and a profound sense of loss. The emotional toll can lead to depression, anxiety, and a sense of failure that lingers for years. Every missed moment is a painful reminder of what's been lost. Birthdays, milestones, simple daily joys. Children suffer too. They need both parents to feel secure and loved. When a father is marginalized, kids may feel abandoned, confused, or less valued. Research shows children with involved fathers do better in life, emotionally, socially, and academically. The pain extends to co-parenting relationships, fueling resentment, conflict, and ongoing tension. The system's failures hurt everyone involved, leaving families fractured and struggling to heal. The cost is measured in broken hearts, lost connections, and fractured families. We can't ignore the human impact. These are lives forever changed. The stakes are simply too high to overlook. This isn't about blaming mothers or excusing bad fathers. It's about recognizing that most parents, regardless of gender, truly want what's best for their kids. The real issue is fairness for good, loving parents on both sides of every case. The law should value all forms of parenting, financial, emotional, and hands-on, equally and without bias. Courts must look at the present and future, not just the past, when making decisions. Shared parenting should be the starting point, unless there's a clear reason otherwise. The goal is to give children two active, involved parents, because fairness means living up to the promise of the law. It's time for honesty about family court. The system is meant to protect families, but too often it falls short. We must acknowledge the gap between the law's promise and reality and recognize the emotional toll on parents. The primary caregiver standard needs re-examination in today's world, where both parents often share responsibilities. Courts should consider the full range of each parent's contributions, not just traditional roles. Fathers need support and a community to share their stories and struggles. Change requires collective action, public awareness, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. The law promises fairness and neutrality. Let's hold the system accountable for every family. Our children deserve the love and presence of both parents in their lives. Good fathers who follow the law shouldn't lose their kids. They deserve justice too. It's time for real reform. Let's make it happen together.